Hello, I'm Alex, and this is my journal jar. Let's get right into our next entry. Ooh, I had two. Let's see. Let me see. What is the one invention you could not live without, and why? Well, modern medicine. There's quite a few things that I couldn't live without. In fact, I'm very glad to. Here, let me. Here we go. Um, in fact, I'm very glad to have been born and living now rather than even 50 years ago. Even when I was born in the 80s, they had no clue what was going on with me. So, I was born just in time, I guess. Um, I definitely couldn't make it without doctors. I think the one household item, I guess it sounds weird because it's relatively new, but now that I have it, I don't think I could get along without my phone. I'm doing this video on my phone right now. I do basically everything on my phone. I do my job from my phone. I check my emails. I go on social media. I've got games. I check the weather on my phone to tell my kids if they need a jacket if they go outside. Um, I keep in touch with people on the phone because even if they're just right across town, I sometimes I can't get to them. So we face chat. We I have an app on my phone that amplifies sound. So when I really need to hear things, I put the headphones on and turn on that app, and I can hear better. But yeah, I think that's the one household thing that I don't think I could do without. And it seems so silly because, 10 years ago, no one had smartphones. Um, also, I think I mentioned my CPAP in an earlier video. That's an air machine that you wear when you're sleeping. Because, like I said, with my nervous system not really in control of background processes, I stop breathing when I sleep. So if I put on that CPAP, it gives me a supply of air when I'm sleeping. It keeps me breathing at night. My husband also has sleep apnea, and he has a CPAP too. My mother. My mother had autonomic dysfunction as well, and she had a CPAP. So it was really funny, the progression. My mom wasn't even diagnosed until her death. Um, they had no idea what was going on with her. So that tells you how, recently it was, on doctors' radars. Um, and then, but they had no idea what sleep apnea was. There's lots of different causes for sleep apnea. Um, and so they didn't even know what that was until my mom was in her 30s. Um, when she had one of the first models of CPAP machines. And so I grew up, being very used to okay, there's this little machine here, no big deal. It helps her sleep without having to wake up for air. Um, I remember every time she got a new CPAP, they would be quieter and quieter and quieter, and you don't realize how loud the old CPAPs were until like you've used the newer one for a while, and then you turn on the old one. It's like, wow. I mean, now they're just like really soft, like little like noise machines, like the white noise things, which is really nice. I mean, it helped me sleep listening to mom's CPAP. um, but then, since I was so familiar with all that, um, when I was engaged to my husband, I would see him um, with like all the signs of sleep apnea, because if you're not sleeping during the day, then you are drooping. Like, I mean, sorry, if you're not sleeping all night, you're just kind of like drooping during the day, falling asleep at odd hours. Yet it doesn't seem quite out of their control, like narcolepsy or something, but still just falling asleep all the time. And when they do sleep, there's a classic, you snore and then you stop, then you make like, and then it's like, okay, that is sleep apnea for sure. And so when I was engaged to my husband, I would watch him do exactly that. We'd be at a movie and he'd fall asleep and he'd wake up like that. I'm just like, honey, I know this. I saw this with my mom. You've got to get checked out for sleep apnea. You've got it. You need to get yourself a machine. And at first it's like, what machine? I don't want to like have stuff on my face when I sleep. That's crazy. That's crazy. But my mom pressured him. I pressured him, and 2 weeks before we were married, he had broken his ankle. And he's in the emergency room, nodding off, snoring, stopping. And like every technician that caught this was like, you do know you have sleep apnea, right? So like the first thing we did, like literally we got back from our honeymoon after we were married, and it's like, okay, we're making your appointment at the sleep center. And sure enough, he was like bottom of the charts. And so I was very much used to sleeping near a CPAP machine, and it took him a while to get used to it, but the minute he got used to it, he's like, okay, this is it. And so, but it wasn't till like 10 years later that I was finally diagnosed with sleep apnea. And it was even a couple years after they finally diagnosed me with autonomic dysfunction. And I mean, that really should have been like the next in line. Like, oh, okay, your autonomic system doesn't control all this stuff. Well, let's make sure you're breathing when you sleep. But finally, I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. I figured out, I knew my cause before I knew I had sleep apnea. And, I couldn't imagine, like, sleeping without it. Like, it is a little annoying to get used to that mask and not being able to be comfortable in, like, certain sleeping positions. But it is well worth adjusting to it, getting an extra pillow, getting doing what it takes to make you comfortable. So yeah, like if anybody is just like, no matter what they do, they just can't seem to get a good night's sleep, and they're waking up all the time during the night and like really struggling staying awake, get checked out. So many more people have sleep apnea than anybody ever realized. And anyone who's ever started using a CPAP machine has really, really had improvement. So I would definitely suggest going to a sleep center, talking to your doctor, get checked out. because it is well worth it. And like, I couldn't imagine sleeping without it after that. And so yeah, like I've been talking about my CPAP for a long time, but I mean my maybe that is more the thing that the one thing that I couldn't possibly live without. What is the one thing that you can't live without? Let me know in the comments. And if you've got anything for my journal jar, let me know. And I'll see you again.